support or help. And believe me, home was a nightmare by now. Can you turn that off for a second? I'm ready. So where were we?
College, Newton College.
Yeah, off I go to Newton College thinking I'm going to fill this hole blowing through my gut. And, I don't ever remember even looking for the chapel. I think probably there were some required courses. I can't remember. One was called SWIC, Study of Western Culture, 9 o'clock every day. And by now I'd met your dad, Bob Sengelman, on a boat coming back from Europe. And there was no way on a Monday morning I could make a 9 o'clock class. I slept through most of those. Anyway, let me talk about meeting your dad. Way back when I was still living at home, I was still in high school, I started dating a guy named Paul Phillips. I think most of you know Paul Phillips. But anyway, Paul went on to Princeton. And we were dating. And then he went on to medical school. And guess who his roommate was? Bob Sengelman. Well, this was very awkward because I was supposed to meet Paul in Europe. His family was from London. I was supposed to meet with Paul and get engaged that summer. But instead, I just didn't. I just didn't go. I went to Sweden and stayed with my sister-in-law-to-be, Edward's girlfriend. And then I got on a boat called the Bergensfjord, and there was Bob Sengelman in this wonderful Glen Urquhart tweed jacket with his horn-rimmed glasses, Benson and Hedges in his pocket, the wind blowing his hair forward. Oh, I was in love instantly. And he and I, can you stop for a second, hon?
Sure. I love you.
He's so cute. He's so in love with Holly.
Oh, really?
Oh my God.
That's
He
so
runs
good.
right past me to get to her.
Screw you, lady.
Yeah. But he'll put up with me a little bit if she's not home.
Aw.
Oh,
That's
I
so
know, and it
sweet.
really hurts my feelings.
I know. Big boys, they do that. So stinky that way. Okay. Let's do a little bit of something here. All right. There you go. Got that on tape too. Talking about, yeah. I just wanted to get that. You're facing him on here. So
Oh,
that's just cute. Okay, so Bob.
okay.
You met him and you fell in love and
Oh, that was so great. So what Bob and I would do,
you know what? Now you got that thing hanging down right in front of your face.
I know,
It wasn't bad when it was the two of you. No, it's just the curl at the end here.
I know, but I have to turn the
There
whole
you
thing.
go. Turn it. Yeah, and maybe not the foot. The foot you can't really see. I'm going to go any closer on you and you won't see it at all.
Stay.
There.
Um, Well-
Do the top shade real quick. I want to see because it's making your hair blonde out or like wood plate. Oh, that's perfect.
oh, it is?
Yeah, actually,
Oh, that was a good one. Oh, that's on tape too.
yeah, yes, it is. Okay, no, but this is really good.
Okay.
I mean, you do it because it gives you kind of a halo thing, but it makes your hair white as opposed to blonde.
Oh, okay.
We know how we want our hair a certain way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, I have to back up a little bit, I think. So I was dating Paul Phillips, and he graduated Princeton and went on to Albany Medical School. And started dating him there, and that's where I met Bob Sengelman.
What's the year?
Bob said, oh, are you going to church tomorrow? And I said, yes. And he said, oh, I am too. Why don't I just take you? Well, I now know, of course, that was a ploy. And as I was walking up the church steps in Albany, I remember he commented on what beautiful legs I had. And I'm a sucker for a compliment. So that was kind of a little turn on. He used to make a big fuss over me when I'd visit Paul. Then summer came, and I hooked up with Bob on the ship coming home from Europe. And that was the year, the sophomore year, that they were rooming together. So instead of going into Paul's room, I went into Bob's room. It was a little awkward, but you know what? I don't think Paul was all that disturbed by it. We were all drunks, not so much your dad, but Paul and I were already drunks, and I don't think he was that attached to me. Anyway, so Bob and I started our journey together, and it was an awful lot of fun. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. He had brought this little Mercedes 190 SL home on the ship with him, and he was a man about town. He seemed to have an endless supply of money, and so we got to do anything we wanted. I now realize it was his parents were feeding us this cash, and we didn't think anything of it, but we got to go skiing and eat out in nice restaurants and take trips, and it was just really an exciting time. Our courtship lasted about 3 years because I would say a lot of it had to do with drinking, because when he was really hot after me, I'd be sort of cool and push him away, and then vice versa. When I'd say, oh my gosh, he was a good deal, I need to catch him, he'd be like, oh, a little indifferent. But we tried to elope really soon after we met, when I was at Newton. So I was only at Newton 2 years. I didn't graduate from there. And we tried to elope, and I don't know what happened to it. I was so excited, the idea of it. It was kind of like a child's version of what real life is like. It wasn't realistic. I didn't, all of you have picked mates that I'm sure you talked about things before you launched into a marriage, about what your ideas are, your philosophies, your thoughts about education, about having children, about religion. We spoke of nothing except where we were going to have our next meal or trip or whatever. So anyway, it was a wonderful time. I lived in a rooming house in Albany. He did too, a different one, and just lots of little fun episodes. I met his parents. I don't know how fond they were of me. It was fine in the beginning, but as soon as they found out that my parents were so prejudiced and there was so much bad blood between the two sets of parents, it was awful. My parents wouldn't let Bob come upstairs to pick me up. His parents put up with me, but they were really disappointed because they had ideas about, being one big happy family. So Delphine and Henry were really good to me, but they were very disappointed in his choice. And I remember his father said to me once, I'm very concerned about how much you and my son are arguing. We had terrible fights. And you can't really understand any of this if you don't realize that we're drinking a lot. It doesn't make sense unless you realize we are drinking a lot. And when you have a drinking problem, your judgments are all skewed. And you stop maturing from the time you start drinking. So I started drinking when I was about 11, and Bob probably started when he was a teenager. And so emotionally, that's about how old we were. And even though intellectually he was amazing, still emotionally we were pretty retarded. We went ahead and got married. I'll tell you a little about that. My parents weren't even going to come. They didn't endorse the marriage at all. So Bob's cousin Janet Linton, she's not Linton anymore, she's Peisch, I think, or maybe she has a third name now. But anyway, that was Aunt Jenny Baldini's daughter. She and Bob grew up together, and she offered her home. So we got married in Albany in a Catholic church, and the reception was at Janet's house in Delmar, which is a suburb of Albany. The night before, 2 nights before I got married to your dad, my parents took me out for dinner. They told me that they had changed their mind, that they would attend the wedding, and that they would pay for it. And they handed me a check for the full amount. I told them exactly what everything cost, and it was a check for $200. That included everything. So anyway, my dress was $19.95. I wore a cheongsam, an ivory satin dress, with the high neckline and the two frogs here and the slit up the side, and I wore Fuji mums in my hair. And I had 5 bridesmaids, and they wore vibrant turquoise cheongsams with little turquoise bands in their hand. And there were only, just a handful of people there, and it was a ball. My sister's husband, Bill Leahy, made fish house punch. Couldn't taste any alcohol in it. It was all alcohol. After a few hours, everybody was best friends. Half of our family was lying down on the floor. We just thought it was the best party ever, but it was time to go. So we left for our honeymoon, and we got about 3 blocks away, and we said, what are we doing? Why are we leaving the party? Aunt Dudu tried to throw herself on the car. Remember, Aunt Dudu's real name is Josephine Baldini. We called her Aunt Dudu. I don't know why. She threw herself on the car when we were trying to leave. We said, no, you can't go on our honeymoon. Anyway, we got about 3 blocks away, and we go, this is silly. Why are we leaving? That was so much fun. So we went back to our own reception. A lot of it was a big blank. Anyway, we honeymooned in Cape Cod, and that was fun. I mean, Daddy and I traveled really happily together. We had fun. He was such an interesting man. He had so many interests. He knew so much. He studied, really, I would say he read about things, but he had such an incredible mind that it was like he had studied. So he was fun to just follow around. I miss those days terribly. I'm so sad that I'm gonna cry. He's just so trapped in his body right now. It's so sad. When I go visit him, I miss the person that I knew back then. And somebody you guys didn't really know or remember. He was a remarkable man and so much fun to be with and so interesting and slim and active and a great sportsman. So anyway, that's the guy I fell in love with. And when we got back from our honeymoon, he was in medical training, and he was drafted out of medical training at New York Hospital, Cornell Medical Center, which was extraordinary. No one had ever heard of such a thing. We didn't realize the Vietnam War was building. And he knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, and he finally ended up in Washington explaining, I can't leave my medical training. And they said, yes, you are going to, but because you're so persevering, we will give you some choices. You can choose the Philippines, California, or Italy. You can take your wife and all your worldly goods. We'll pay for it. And you can do a 2-year stint instead of a 3-year stint. So, as you know, we ended up in Naples and for 2 years. And they did ship all of our worldly goods, and it was just a fluke that I happened to notice that the value crate, the one with all my valuables, our photographs, my jewelry, all that was missing. I guess it was just taken right off the dock. So we don't have any photographs or anything from graduations or college or any of that time. So our life sort of started in 1962 in terms of photographs. And of course we have some baby photographs from our parents, but we don't have all those important landmarks on picture. So anyway, we went to Europe. We loved it. Daddy was at sea the first year. I always call him Daddy because I think I'm talking to my kids, right?
You are.
Yeah, and my grandkids, though. That's going to be a little confusing. He was at sea most of the first year. I was pregnant with Eric, and I did want to make sure I mentioned some transformative things in my life, and having children was one of them. I mean, it's so funny, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I remember what I wore the day Eric was born. I remember exactly what that labor felt like and what the room looked like where I delivered him and everything. Daddy took pictures of all this. Oh my gosh. So that was a huge event for me, having my first baby, and every baby after, but something about firsts that really is remarkable. I guess because you don't have any knowledge, you've never been down that road before. And so Eric was an adorable baby, just as he is today, adorable. And we had the cutest little apartment, and I think you've all seen it now, or most of you have seen it, because we went back there last year for Eric's 50th birthday in Villa Salve, in Alvombro, in Naples. And it was a 17th century villa, and we lived in a little apartment above the consul. The American consul lived downstairs, and a couple of English captains lived there, and a couple of other people. A wonderful villa with a superintendent right on the premises. And we only had like a living room, dining room, and a bedroom and a bathroom, and this wonderful, wonderful deck, veranda, whatever they call them, patio, that overlooked we could see Capri from there. We could see Mount Vesuvius. And Daddy gardened all the pots, all the antique pots. He had them all in bloom with geraniums and everything in no time. Because, by the way, he also was a horticulturist. He used to read, all these Perkins manuals and stuff before he went to bed. So he knew a lot about a lot of things. Anyway, that was a great time. My friend, he was at sea right after the delivery, and so my friend Valerie Boone took me under her wing, showed me how I couldn't nurse Eric. He wasn't interested, so she showed me how to feed him, when to get up at night, how to cleanse him, how to take care of a new baby, and then of course I got pregnant again, and along comes Stephen. And Stephen was a nurser. Oh my, he loved to nurse. And so when I arrived back in the States, Daddy and I got off the ship, and of course all the Baldini girls were there to greet us. Now we had 2 little babies, which was just so exciting for them. They were just all over it. And we used to carry Stephen in this we did Eric too, but now Eric was on foot, and we carried him in sort of like a little valise. It's really convenient. So anyway, we moved into hospital housing in New York City, 68th Street, New York Avenue, and then Roberta came along. Roberta was a little more anxiety producing because the way she was delivered was an emergency, and we are so lucky to have Twink amongst us. And if it weren't for my parents and your dad, she probably wouldn't be here. Maybe I wouldn't either. But they swung into action really fast. She was a complete abruptio. You can look that up. And she was born. I left, Daddy carried me out of the apartment at 10 of 10, and he was on the phone telling everyone that we had a little girl at 10 after. That's how fast it all happened. So we got our Twinkle, thank heavens, my only girl. I adore boys, but oh, I'm so grateful I have a girl. And then I went to see my OBGYN, and he said, that was a close call, Rebecca. He said, let me advise you about something. I'm gonna give you a diaphragm, and I want you to put it in before the first martini. And I didn't ever think anything about that. I just thought that was a cute thing to say. But apparently I didn't follow instructions. So anyway, along comes Barton. Now, that was quite a delivery because Barton was a towhead from the first moment of life. I said to the doctor, "What is that white thing I see in the mirror?" And they said, "That's your baby's head." I mean, he had white hair. It was so adorable. And Barton, I have to say, your saving grace has been your adorableness. You have always been so adorable and gotten away with such murder. Anyway, so now we have 4 and 4 years, and I have no idea how to be a parent. None whatsoever. I had no modeling. Daddy would suggest that I maybe read some books on how to raise children, and I thought that was the most insulting thing I ever heard, because it seemed to me, if you can have them, then you must know how to do it. I thought motherhood came with the delivery. It was one package. So anyway, it was life by Braille, and there were a lot of other young parents in the building, and everyone was mass producing like rabbits. The guys were all off getting trained, wearing their white Dr. Kildare outfits, and we all had a lot of babies, and we all commiserated in the park every morning. The park was something I want to remind you about. The ground was concrete. It was right up the street on 68th Street and First Avenue. So it's got swings, slides, concrete, okay? The bathroom was not usable. There was sludge up to about your knees in the bathrooms. And I used to sit next to a woman named Ruth, and her son would go up the steps of the big slide, the big steel slide, and he'd look over at his mom, and he'd go like this. And I said, "Ruth, just let him go. He won't do it again." But I didn't realize actually he literally would never do it again because he wouldn't be around. I have a cold. So anyway, we all commiserated with each other and complained about the long hours and all that kind of stuff. But we were getting through. And now we had a 3-bedroom apartment. And it was very nice, really. We're on the 4th floor right across from Sloan Kettering and New York Hospital Rockefeller Institute. The OBGYN where Roberta and Barton were born. It was pretty nice. We would go over to Englewood, New Jersey, where Papa and Grammy, Grammy, you called her Grammy. Grammy and Papa lived right over the George Washington Bridge. I really hated going there, but I didn't know that I could say no, and I didn't have an alternative, and I didn't really have a reason. Daddy would say, think about it. You go over there, and my parents watch the kids. We have this great food. Why are you complaining? And I didn't really know. I didn't know I was complaining, but I'll tell you now. The reason was because when I went there, I didn't have a husband anymore. They had a son. Daddy just kind of disappeared. He would garden, read, nap, bathe, whatever he was doing. And I really didn't have a place or a role. These people were putting up with me more than anything else. They weren't really crazy about me to begin with. I don't blame them. So anyway, I've always wanted a relationship, just a very pedestrian relationship with someone that liked me and that I liked. Not so much what we did together, but just being together and enjoying it. And Daddy and I lost that quality. We really emotionally separated. He was adding some outside interests into the marriage too. And I would have, except I was always pregnant. And I can't really say quite what happened to that marriage, but it wasn't very functional. So we were together 15 years, but we were only married legally 12 years, and we moved. The boards were only offered in his specialty in California and Florida on the same day. So you could not, and it wasn't reciprocal from New York. So we had to make a choice whether to choose. We knew we wanted to be in a warmer climate. He had to make a choice between Florida and California, and we both wanted to go to California. So he took his boards and, of course, passed. And so we moved to California in 1969, I think. I'm pretty sure it was 69. And we moved into a motel. I loved it. Bart was in the closet in his little crib, and then Lily came with us, and Lily and Roberta slept in one bed, and Bob and I slept in another bed, and then the boys, Eric and Stephen, slept in another bed, and we all fit into one room, and it was great. I mean, we went out for our meals.
His boards and his specialty, 1969.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. So, is it on now?
It is.
Oh, okay. So we're living in Westlake Inn, and I'm loving it. I don't have to make beds. I don't have to cook meals. And believe me, I've cooked a lot of meals. But everybody else, oh, you poor things, how hard not having your own home. Anyway, we found our house, and Westlake Village was not completed at all. It was just kind of a developer's dream. So when we moved into that house on Lake Meadow Lane, there was no grass. The streets were being poured. Buildings were going up everywhere. It was, very much under construction. And I felt like it was kind of a nightmare. I mean, think about it. I'd only lived in Manhattan and Naples, Italy. And now all of a sudden I'm in this desolate, under construction, high.
You lived in Albany.
Oh, I lived in Albany, yeah, in cities with people, all different colors, people, and libraries and museums. And now I'm in the high desert under construction, and the hill that we lived on was just mud. And one day a truck came along and squirted and painted it green. And I had to call people and tell them. They just painted the mud to make it look like grass. What I didn't know was it's colored so they can tell where they've seeded the earth. And underneath the lake that you loved so well was a 49-mile baggie containing the water. And the rocks they weren't really rocks. They were fakes with lights behind them. And I'd just never seen anything like this. It was not my idea of paradise, but I have to say it was a very good choice to raise children. And the only real shortcoming of that era was that it was so white bread. I mean, you kids never saw a person of color for probably, how long did I live there? 7 years. And the kids all looked alike. I had 4 of you in White Oak at the same time. And, there was only one children's store, so everybody had the same haircut, the same clothes, and they were all, blondes with white skin. It was just almost bizarre. I wasn't happy during those years. It was the end of my drinking, the end of my marriage. The only bright spot was that I found out I was pregnant. Ellen was with me actually that day. And she said, "So what did the doctor say?" And I said, "I'm pregnant." She goes, "Oh, I can't believe it." But now we understand what she meant. So anyway, I was very, very concerned about being pregnant again because Daddy had pretty much emotionally left me. We were not getting along. It was a really hard time. Having another child just seemed redundant. And I had to make a choice. Was I going to have that child or not? Well, thank God. One of the ways that I made that decision was knowing that I was so fragile emotionally from drinking and from being in a dead-end marriage that I knew that if I took any steps to end that pregnancy that I would never get over the guilt. That's just who I am. I mean, I'd had all those years of Catholic training too, and it was too risky for me to make a decision like that. And once I made the decision to go through with the pregnancy, it was like I was given the grace to enjoy the pregnancy and the delivery and this new baby enormously, as all of you did too. It was really the highlight of that year. And as you know, Peter and I are the same age. I got sober that year that he was born, and so he and I have grown up together, so to speak. And it was so cute because you guys used to fight over him. When I brought him home from the hospital, we'd gotten all these little baby clothes as presents from people, and you all wanted to try them on him. And newborns are so tiny, even though they're big babies. He was 8'3" or something. But his clothes were just huge on him. But I let you experiment with him, and you were so much a part of his babyhood. And you used to fight over who was going to have him in their room at night, because we had porta cribs. We didn't have these new things that you have. And you'd turn it, it used to be a rectangle, but you'd squeeze it through the door and fight on either end of it, and it would turn into a trapezoid. So he'd move from room to room at night when he was a little older. And he was a good nurser. That chair that I was sitting in for the beginning of the video, that was the chair I nursed him in. And so, yeah, right there. That was the chair. It used to have an ottoman. I used to put my feet up, but that's what's left of it. So, so it was now the end of 1973, and Daddy and Ellen came and talked to me about their love affair. The timing was awkward because when Daddy told me that he was in love with someone else, it was right after my mother called to tell me that my father had died. So it kind of occluded my father's death, I would say. I went back and I took Peter with me because I was nursing. He was about 4 months old then. I went back to New York and I behaved in somewhat of a acceptable manner. But I had been drinking on the plane going back, and I just couldn't function very well. So Daddy and I and the baby went right over to Lily's, and I think we had some vodka or something to try to straighten me out. So when I arrived at 9:55 with my mother, my aunt, my sister, my brother, every one of those drunks was sober, and I came in smelling like a brewery. And I cried all week, but it was really for myself, not so much for the loss of my father. I'd never really been that close to my father. I'm not sure why. I think maybe, I mean, I have, you know, some ideas. He was gone the first 4 years of my life. No, from the time I was 2 to 6, he was overseas. That may be part of the reason. Another reason might be that men weren't as involved in their children's lives. They were sort of the breadwinners, as they are today, as you are with your children, you guys. Or it could be also that my mother always ran interference. She was trying to manage the relationship. So she would always say, oh, go kiss your father goodnight, or go do this to your father and everything. And she set up a plan where Daddy would take me to the movies and ice cream sodas on Saturdays. Well, I love the movies. I didn't even like ice cream sodas, but I think we did that. I don't know that we really enjoyed it, you know. So when he died, I didn't feel enormous loss at all, and I still don't. I wished I'd known him differently, but I would say my father prostituted his own life to live through my mother, and it's a shame. I don't think he was never realized. I don't really know who he was. And so I'm much more aware of my mother's influence in my life, and much more, all the memories I have pretty much are memories of things she and I did together, or she told me, or whatever. So it's a kind of a matriarchal situation. Anyway, so now I'm desolate, but guess what? I'm sober. So that's the beauty that, they talk about the silver lining in the clouds. The beauty of that kind of shocking, horrifying news was that it woke me up. And I made a phone call and got help and started my sobriety. And I can't say that my parenting skills increased. I think I asked Eric, well, I asked all of you after about 6 months of being sober, I said, well, do you see any difference in me? And you weren't paying any attention to me. Pretty chaotic at our house. I said, do you see anything different about me? No one paying any attention. Does anyone see anything different about me? And Eric said, yeah, you seem a lot meaner. And that's pretty much the way it was. Because when I came to in the end of 73, the beginning of 74, I was trying to make up for lost time. Man, I was going to send you all to counseling, and I had behavior mod charts on the refrigerator and M&Ms ready to reward you and all this stuff, that because I'd been such a delinquent parent. I was physically always in attendance. I always cooked the meals and did the carpooling and all that kind of stuff. But emotionally, children know when you're not really home. So for that, I apologize. So anyway, it was a rough start. Sobriety was a rough start. But thank God it started at the end of 73, and I'm still sober today, and it's 41 years later. And you probably have many different memories of those years. I would say my focus became my sobriety, and I needed to keep that my number one priority. And it's a juggling act when you have a big family and you're a single parent. Now, Daddy was available, but not following any rules. Oh my gosh. His availability was so disruptive to our daily activities. I would come home from a meeting and go and do a head count, and one or two of you would be missing. He would have come in, taken you over to his house. He missed you so much. It was pretty confusing. It was very difficult. We were not able to operate as a team, even in our separation. We just couldn't do it. And it was difficult. And I didn't know that it was okay to tell him no and set some boundaries. So I kind of contributed to that confusion. Anyway, he was so loving of you guys and so wanting to be a participating parent. But I have to say, I got to do all the, the boring stuff, the driving and the school stuff and the Indian guides and mostly it was the chores. And so I was kind of like the hired help. And Daddy got to do a lot of the fun stuff because he had the money. So he got to take you to nice restaurants and nice vacations and trips and stuff like that. And that's great because actually they work together pretty well. And And I'm really indebted to him for the advantages that he's given all of us. He provided you with as much education as you wanted to have, and as much curiosity and interest in the world around you that he had. So he made a huge contribution to your lives. And I really got the best part because I got to have the day-to-day experiences with you. And so anyway, I'm going to pick up this session at another time.